If you're one of these people that complain about forced diversity in media, I actually want to tell you something. You don't have a problem with forced diversity in media. You have one of two problems. You either have a problem with bad writing in media, or you have a problem with the fact that you're a racist, homophobic, Islamophobic, anti-Semitic asshole. Is it forced diversity that the studio and director Robert Zemeckis originally wanted Sean Penn or John Travolta in the role of Forrest Gump, and they ended up having to settle for Tom Hanks? Stanley Kubrick, powerful master filmmaker Stanley Kubrick, most people would tell you is in the top 5 visionary filmmakers of all time. He wanted Robin Williams for the role of Jack Torrance in The Shining. The studio's like, hey, he's not a star. This is before he was just like in Mork and Mindy. He's like, no, fuck your vision. We ain't going to put money behind it. So Stephen King and the studio pressed and got their way, and they got Jack Nicholson. And aren't we glad they did? I'm not saying Williams would have sucked at it, but Kubrick worked with it. Hell, Alien, the first Alien, the character was written to be unisex, according to the writer of the screenplay. And it went to a woman, whatever the reason being, whether Ridley Scott was a feminist or whether it was just she was best for the role, who knows, but who kind of cares? Because they got the actor and they molded the experience of creating that film around the cast that they had put together. I have to assume lines were adjusted and rewritten, and maybe even plot points adjusted and rewritten once Sigourney Weaver came in. Not because she's a woman, but because it's like, hey, she's a certain height, or she talks a certain way, or she has a certain vibe about her. Let's build that into the character. That's the process. That's the healthy process. That's how it should work. This happens in TV too, all the time. There's a producer named Ken Levine, not that one. He worked on MASH and Cheers and all kinds of big shows. He says, if the studios, the network TV studios, were to have made The Sopranos, you would never have gotten James Gandolfini. He's not good looking enough. He's not fuckable enough. You would have gotten John Stamos playing the role of Tony Soprano. He says for comedies, the fights are always over the producer's desire to hire funny people and the network's insistence on hiring attractive people. 30 Rock, Tina Fey's 30 Rock, she wanted SNL cast member Rachel Dratch, whatever you say her name. The studio said, no, pretty much she's not hot enough. She's not fuckable enough. That's his words. We want Jane Krakowski. He says they have a list of their recommended actors. Can you sometimes persuade them? Yeah, of course. But a lot of times it's like, look, you can hire who you want, but they got to be on this list. He concludes by saying it's maddening. And another reason why network TV is so bland. They want to go with safe, cute, known, and fuckable. Okay, but this happens everywhere. Not just movies, not just TV. Since the 2000s, to a lesser degree and to a different degree, but the same result, it happens in video games. These choices, these creative choices, are not made in a vacuum. There are lots of cooks in the kitchen the higher the budgets go. And if you think that the movies that you get or the video games that you get are just, birthed out of Neil Druckmann's head or Cory Barlog's head with no influence, whatever that influence may be, even sometimes influences that the key creative visionaries don't want, you got rocks in your head. God of War 2, we wanted to be on PS3. Shuhei said no. It's got to be on PS2. It was a business decision. It was the right decision. But creatively, we thought God of War 2 could have been a much stronger title on PS3, and it could have. But my God, that thing sold bucket loads because it was on PS2. Whether it's your fuckability, whether it's your diversity number, whether it's this is the season to hire a bunch of LGBT folks because we think it would be good for business. The idea that suddenly all of you folks have been these protectors of great writing and great visions for your whole lives, but you've never said anything. But now, when it is coming from more of a liberal, progressive direction as it relates to people who get hired, and specifically the stories and the characters in those stories that those people tell, then it's, no, we have a problem because the movies are bad. Well, the movies may be bad, and those people are with me. I agree. If a movie's bad, no matter what, a director and a writer and a creative troupe is responsible within reason to take the materials they have been given. Some of those materials are chosen, some of those materials are forced upon them, and to say, here's what we got, fellas. Let's go make a show. Let's go make a movie. Let's go make a game, and let's do it great. Okay, so even if, and I've conceded this point, because once I did my first Sweet Baby Inc. video, you guys pointed out to me that it wasn't the fact that there was like a legal aspect compelling these companies to hire diverse folks. It was BlackRock and various investment firms would not suggest these studios or these conglomerates that own the studios for investment if those corporations did not hire a diverse workforce at the level that companies like BlackRock were demanding. But let me ask you this. End of the day, when these companies, game companies, movie companies, whatever, basically acquiesce to companies like BlackRock in order to get on their investment sheet and thus get money, how is that any different than when a company like Paramount told Val Kilmer, even though he had no interest in being in Top Gun, didn't want to be Iceman, probably his most famous role. They says, hey, you got a contract, you got to do it. We want you at a business level. We think this is good for us. I don't care if you, the artist, don't want to play the role. You're going to play the role and make us money. How is that different? I understand that BlackRock telling Sony and Sony telling the developers do it this way because our diversity score is a different specifics than the Val Kilmer situation. But it's both big companies, big money telling artists, this is what we want and need for our business. You work for us and figure it out. It's just the way it's always been done. It's just the relationship between art and commerce and the people that fund the art that has always been in play. So if you want to talk about being disappointed in your entertainment these days, I think that's a great conversation to have. I think it's a valid conversation to have. But diversity is a smokescreen. It's got nothing to do with diversity. Because if forced diversity is what's making these movies and video games so bad, what you're really saying is the decades that have come before, where creatives have figured out how to deal with decisions made out of the creative, nurturing, loving perfection of the creative process, decisions that have come down from on high, those were easier to solve. It was easier to figure out how to make Jack Nicholson work in The Shining when Kubrick really wanted Robin Williams. It was easier to figure out how to deal with Eric Stoltz and Michael J. Fox in the Back to the Future recasting. But suddenly when it's dealing with writing black people or gay people into the story, well, mister, you're asking for a lot. You're asking for the impossible. And let's not forget Beverly Hills Cop, the movie that made Eddie Murphy, black Eddie Murphy, one of the biggest stars in the world. That was a movie that was written and they were going to have Stallone in it. Stallone comes in, white Stallone. He comes in, tries to make it into more of an action summer movie. And they say, yeah, this is not working. They get rid of him. They kick the white guy out. They bring the black guy in. Somehow, they don't only make it work. Somehow, it doesn't feel like forced diversity. It feels like comedy motherfucking gold. Why? Well, here's why. Your issue is not diversity, unless it is. We'll get to that in a minute. The real issue is not diversity. The real issue is budget. The budgets on these AAA games and movies are through the roof. And with more money comes more fear. And with more fear, the studios throw a bunch more cooks in the kitchen to protect the money. And with all those cooks in the kitchen, the end product becomes watery and flavorless and bland and shit. And that's why you see the games you see getting hit. You're not seeing this in AA. You're not seeing this in indie. Yeah, indie has a lot of progressive games, but you also have a fucking game just came out where you can play as Alex Jones. All right? You can do whatever you want if the budget is cheap enough. It's the AAA, quadruple A shit, if you listen to Ubisoft, that's getting hit because without the money they get from companies like BlackRock, they can't operate at the level that customers are demanding. So, of course, they're going to acquiesce to these demands, whatever you think of them. But here's the thing. If it turns out there's more people who want diversity-free gaming, movies, television shows than there are of people like me that either totally support and or don't have a problem at all with the diversity push, well then guess what? As much as Sony, let's just say, needs the BlackRock money, it's not going to do them any good. As much as Disney needs the BlackRock money, it's not going to do them any good if the products they make aren't making money back at the level to satisfy the investors in the first place. So that group will win and my group will lose when it comes to sort of what we see in the AAA space or in the big budget movie space. And that may happen. I honestly don't know if the diversity crowd is a vocal minority or if they represent most people on the planet. No way of knowing, at least as far as I can tell. But here's the thing. If you are in the category of the people who don't want the diversity, then the question is why? Now, my guess is most people don't want it because they think it makes for bad products. They don't want it because the companies aren't able to financially support the freedom the creatives need to marble these demands into the products in a way that is fluid and organic and exciting and acceptable to people who just want to be entertained. Not all of y'all, but the majority, that would be my guess. It's not the diversity, it's the budgets and the fear that comes with that and the collapse in the creative process that comes when you are terrified to make a mistake and lose all your money. And it also makes sense that as the audiences for video games grow, I mean, it ain't like it was in the 90s, man. Tons more people play games. Lots of women play games now. Almost 50% of the game playing public are women. Of all different types of games, not just Candy Crush like a lot of you guys say. So of course it makes sense they're going to want to, when they're spending that kind of money, make sure that the net is cast wider. If you worked at these companies, you would do the same if you wanted to keep your job. But now let's get to the part that enrages progressives like myself. We can come together and kumbaya over bad writing, and man, it would have been great if the last Indiana Jones wasn't shit, and on and on and on. I'm with you 100%. I love entertainment. I hate when entertainment's vision of the artists is compromised. But the part that enrages people like myself is not that. It's that people use that as an excuse when it's not the real thing that's upsetting them, and when the real thing that's upsetting them is the diversity. And look, man, a lot of people won't just come out and say it. They'll say it's the writing, but they can't really articulate it and get around some of the points I just made. So inevitably, they'll get to these kinds of comments. I don't like diversity in my entertainment because I don't want to see so many black people or gay people or trans people. They don't make up a big percent of the population. Why is it they're in all the goddamn entertainment these days? And my answer is, if the entertainment's good, it shouldn't fucking matter. Plus, it does kind of make you wonder, well, wait a minute. A lot of times people are saying representation doesn't matter. And now you're saying you're bothered that the people who are in the show don't represent the majority of people on the planet. Well, which the fuck is it? I loved Stranger Things. Guess what? I'm not like, there was a black guy in it and there was a gay kid in it and 11 was the cool character, but that was a girl. I was just like, no, they wrote a good fucking show. I didn't like Indiana Jones and the new one because I felt it was forced diversity. It's because it was just not good. Plus, it makes me wonder a little bit. A lot of times these people say, doesn't matter, diversity is not important to see your orientation or your religion or whatever reflected on the screen. Nobody cares about that. That's just a bunch of liberal bullshit. But if that's the case, why does it matter if a small percentage of the population is Jewish trans people? If it's a good story, it's a good story. And you should be able to relate and identify as much with that Jewish trans character as you do Indiana Jones. Because who gives a shit? It's the story, right? For most people, the answer is right. For these people, I'm not starting to wonder. I wonder. You know what I wondered. You know good and goddamn well I think they're racist. Because where were these people complaining about forced decisions coming from an executive level when Val Kilmer was forced in and out of a role, when Robin Williams lost the role in The Shining that Kubrick wanted him to have, or Stallone didn't get to make his vision a Beverly Hills Cop because the powers that be wanted something different, and it was a forced bit of casting or a forced bit of writing. You didn't hear a peep from them then, but you do now. And before you say, well, yeah, Jaffe, but those movies were great, the movies we're talking about ain't. Yeah, because the issue is the budget. The issue is the fact that they can't be made great because of the way things get made today at that level. That's what I'm saying. And plus, let's not forget, there's also a bunch of stinkers where studio executives forced the hand of the director and the creatives, and it turned out terribly. If it's the diversity you don't like, then I'm sorry. You get to go in one of two categories. Pick. Best case, you either get to be one of those people that's just behind the curve and history will leave you by and you'll look like an idiot to your kids and grandkids in X number of years when they go, can you believe grandpa was a racist, homophobic asshole? Or you just know you're racist and you don't have the balls to admit it. Just fucking own it. Just say, you know what? I don't like the gay people. I don't like the trans people. What's that about? Black people, I don't know about them. I don't know about the black people. Then I wouldn't respect your opinion, but I respect at least you have the balls to express it.